Hi everybody, it's Benetta here from Your Anxious Teen, and I'm here to help like us as parents, to deal with anxious teens and to understand them a bit. So what we're talking about today is, are you telling yourself the old story, or are you impressing that story on your teens? So if you or anyone that you know would like to get the notes here today, then you can ask for the notes. And there's also a calming download that you can get. But if you really are having trouble, or someone is, can you please ask them to watch and to share? Because this is how people get to know, how to deal with teens and their anxiety. So let's start today. First of all, I'm going to say that our teens are still underdeveloped in their conscious brain. So the subconscious brain, which is the emotional brain, will always be taking over. Hi, Roz, nice to see you here. So what we're thinking is, how do we help them to develop their conscious brain? Their conscious brain is the one that has logic, the one that can work things out. And so that's what we're talking about mainly here today. Oh, yes, autocorrect, Roz. I know about autocorrect all the time. So let's think about some of the things that we can help with our anxious teens. Number one is I suppose it's a trend today to say that they're anxious, to label themselves as anxious, to say, my anxiety. One of the first things I do when I'm talking to someone who has anxiety, particularly a teen of mine, is to say, let's lose the label. Let's lose the label, because anxiety is a state. It's a state of mind, and it becomes a state of body when it works into that sort of panic attack mode, right? When they start getting so panicky that they can't breathe. That's just a state of body that's brought on by a state of thinking and feeling, okay? So once I explain that to them, and that it's not a mental illness, things change already. It's not a mental illness. Everybody talks about it as a mental illness. It's not a mental illness. It's something that you've picked up along the way, and now you're becoming anxious about all sorts of things, when the core anxiety could be that you were in a house of people who shouted all the time. There was a lot of noise. There were things going on around you that you wanted to get away from. What is Roz? Oh, great subject. Thank you, Roz. I like that. And Adair says, yes, I'm glad that you said that out loud. And it's so funny, isn't it, that saying it out loud and telling, someone who's anxious, that's not who you are, all right? Our behavior and our personality are two completely different things. So I say to them, did you start off anxious, do you think? And sometimes it might be, right? If we had a particularly difficult pregnancy or a particularly difficult birth, then they might have started off anxious already. So when I say to them that anxiety tends to show itself between 1 and 7, in a very small way sometimes, that sometimes it's 0 for them. And they're really up against it if it's 0. In fact, a lot of times when I see other teens who have got things like autism, I find that they went through a very traumatic pregnancy or birth, and that has started their anxiety right from the start. So when we think about anxiety, it is just, I don't feel safe. All right, that's the first thing that we look at, is was there a time in your life, or a time before you were born, that you didn't feel safe? And that's the number one thing with anxiety, is I don't feel safe, therefore I need to try and control my environment. Finding that you can't control your environment completely, you can be aware of it. You can be aware when you want to change things or when your body is feeling out of sorts. But this thing about, anxiety being a disease, Adair, is, to me, craziness. And I'm an ex-nurse, right? Being an ex-nurse, I should just go with what the doctors say and go, oh, yes, of course, it's a disease. We have to treat that with medication. I actually feel that medication is not the right thing. Yes, it helps to dull down the senses, and so therefore they don't feel as anxious about things. However, it's not getting to the core problem. So if we're using medication, let's use it along with therapy. That's my idea. So let's take a look at a few things why teens could be feeling anxious, all right? Because if we can see some of those things and we can deal with them in a better way, then they become less anxious anyway. I do, however, think that they need to talk to a therapist. That's just my idea, because even knowing what the problem is won't always fix it, but it will go a long way to them understanding it. So let's think about the understanding that we have. So first of all, at the moment, we are in this state of COVID. And COVID is causing a lot of disruption in the whole world. But here in Australia, for our teens, it's mainly about their enjoyment of life. When we think about the enjoyment of life of a teen, it would be seeing their friends, going for sleepovers, doing activities after school, going to the football, even going, out to nightclubs once they get into their late teens, right? But all the things that they're missing out on is what's sticking in their mind. So I missed out on a holiday, I missed out on schoolies, I missed out on seeing my friends at particular birthdays. Obviously, some of our teens will be going through sweet 16s or 18th birthdays, whatever your teen would be usually doing. So when we think about all the things that they're missing out on, I have a lot of compassion for that. And also missing out on school. School to some teens is a really big deal. And if we are asking them to do well in their schoolwork, if we're asking them to get good ATARs, and I don't know if you're living in the UK or in America, you probably don't have ATARs, but here in Australia, it is a way of giving them a number or a score that they can get into university easier for particular subjects. So if they are very particular about what they want to do, and they really feel like they need a good ATAR score, then it's going to play on their, on their subconscious and their conscious minds. Even logically, it would be, logically, if I'm not at school and I'm doing work at home, it can be hard, right? So to use our compassion about all those things and not to see them as being, I suppose, trivial. Because once we start trivializing someone else's feelings and emotions, then they start to hide them, right? They start to bury them deep and hide them so that they don't upset us or, they don't look stupid in our eyes. So when we're thinking about how they feel, I want, as a parent, for you to know that the compassion that you feel, even though it might seem trivial to you when you look at your problems, which are probably financial, career-wise, that you can't actually go out and see your friends, but to have compassion about what they feel. So that's number one, really, is getting your head around that things are different right now. and that difference can make a big difference in someone else's life, their depression or anxiety that they're feeling. What about number 2? So we can still bring our core values. Being a parent, to me, is being that role model. Somebody who can bring their core values to the table and say, okay, well, we can still be good friends with someone. We can still have contact with them. We can still tell them how much we love them. We can send them a gift, or we can send them a note, or whatever it is, that keeps us connected. So let's keep connected. Let's keep honest and true and have love for people no matter what, because our core values are something that doesn't need to change. I have seen people during this COVID time who get angry with somebody because they've forgotten a mask, or because they can't wear a mask, or because, I don't know, there's so many things, because they think differently to you, because they have different core values to you. Does it really matter? As long as we're sticking to our core values. And let's just for a moment think about whether our children really need to follow all of our core values. Yes, we can be a role model, but guess what? If they don't, then they're going to learn their own lessons, right? They're going to learn some very valuable lessons in life. If they don't have great core values, that's something they need to learn for themselves. Just be the role model that you are. All right, what else have I got here? Remember that your children aren't mini me's. I'm sure that you would love that in some respects, for them to be just like you, but they're not. They're living in a different era. We've brought them up differently. We've probably brought them up to have a lot of opinions of their own, and that's okay. So let's not, just for a moment, want them to be mini us. What about if we're bringing up children for the future? Children that can look beyond, our values and say, well, if I don't want to buy a house, if I want to actually spend my money having fun and traveling around the world, then maybe that's okay. Maybe to, have a look at the smart investors and say, okay, when I earn money, I'm going to put a certain amount away for living. I'm going to put a certain amount away for having fun, and I'm going to pay my bills. But you know what? I need to have some fun and some outlet. The way we were brought up, if you're anything like me, is that we need an investment house, or we need to pay off our house, or we need to save. Yeah, that's okay. However, I've seen people get to a certain age and not be there to actually enjoy their money. So look at right now. We can't really go out very far or do very much in Australia at the moment. So if you're saving money by not going out and having lunch with people, what about you save that money and you do something with it when you can? So have a certain amount there, or do whatever you can right now. And if it is to go out for a walk, to go to a restaurant, to meet somebody for a coffee, whatever it is, let's do it. That's what I say. And I think that our children are very much more in the vein of, you know what, we might not be here tomorrow. And that could be true. I think that this outbreak and this pandemic has made people think a little bit more about, well, what if I'm not here tomorrow? What if I get this and I die? I might as well enjoy it now. So let's enjoy ourselves a bit more. What about respect? Oh, this is a big one, right? Respect and boundaries. Respect goes both ways, all right? And if your teen is always disrespecting you, by whatever means they're doing it, then it's for you to pull them up in it. It's for you to say no. It's for you to say, this isn't going to happen. I'm still the adult. I'm still your parent. And there's certain things that just need to be respected. Yeah. If you're putting a roof over their head, if you're cooking their meals, if you're cleaning and doing their laundry, whatever you're doing, then for them to disrespect that is not on. Not in my book anyway, not on. So if they want you to stop, I suppose, going on at them about their room or about some breakages, or, you know, if they want something and you're not prepared to give it, then just give them the reason why. I'm not doing it because you're not respecting me. I'm not doing it because you're not putting in, you're not doing your part. This isn't because you don't love them. This is to teach them how to move forward in their own life. Okay? I've had so many times in the past when I felt guilty saying those things. But right now, I don't feel guilty at all. You know, I've been a good mum. I've done all the things that I thought was right. Some of them weren't. And that's why I'm doing this, right? Is that some of the things that I did were not what I would do now. Only because I know the subconscious mind and the conscious mind and how they work. So let's go to the next part of this, and that is not only respect, but also the realization that they are going to mess up. That's true. They're going to mess up at some time in their growing up. They're going to mess up. No matter how much your children are little angels, they're going to mess up somewhere along the line, and it's okay. And as far as I'm concerned, I would just say, okay, I could probably see that coming. That was something that I knew I couldn't stop happening. And so it's time for you to take some responsibility about why you messed up and how you're going to clean up that mess. It's all very well teaching, but the next part of my subject is that our children often won't listen to us. Yeah, it's the truth. They won't listen to us. They will just listen to their peers, or they might listen to an older person in the family if you're lucky. But their peers, their boyfriends, girlfriends are the people that they will listen to the most, because they have a different love for them. They expect that we're going to love them. They expect that we're going to put up with their mess and their shit, right? So it seems okay to them to tell us that we don't know what we're talking about, that we're old-fashioned, that we are pretty useless, to be honest. Sometimes just don't drop me anywhere, don't be seen with me. And that's a phase that they go through. That's a phase that they're going through whereby they think that their peers, their boyfriends, girlfriends know best. So I would say just try and steer them to the right type of people, the people that won't lead them into some really bad ways and habits. And if they do, just going to have to be there when they need us, but to say, no, here are the boundaries. This is what I'm going to accept, and this is what I'm not going to accept. Quite often they say that boys will look up to an uncle or an older man, like, say, a sports teacher, or someone that they go to the footy with, you know, a friend's father. Because even though that friend's father is still a father, it's not the same as your own father. So just expect that sometimes they're going to look outside for validation, for love, for guidance. That is not going to be you. Just the way it is, I'm afraid. I know that with my own children, my daughter has always been pretty headstrong and will often go her own way, even though at the end of the day, she finds that, you know what, maybe mum was right. But I really try not to say, I told you so, or there you go, because she made the judgment, she made the call, and whether it's right or wrong, that's her prerogative. That's her prerogative to make a call and to see that maybe it wasn't the right thing. So we just let it go. Yeah. Holding on to it's the way that it's going to hurt us over and over again. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the old story. The old story. And that's what mainly this is all about, okay? It comes back to, what story are we telling ourselves? Is it the story that we always need to be right? Is it the story that, well, I told you so, the judgment story? Is it the story of, okay, who's the victim in the victim triangle? Is it the story of, well, I did a terrible job back then, so therefore I'm a bad mother? There's lots of stories, right? There's lots of stories that we tell ourselves that aren't true. I have a client who's a young mother, and you know what? She's doing a great job, but she had a really rough upbringing where her mother wasn't there for her. So therefore, every time she makes a call, she doesn't know if it's right or wrong, because she says, oh, well, when I was growing up, my mum did this and that was wrong. That was something that I now feel was a wrong move on my mother's part. I don't blame her, because she wasn't capable of making the right call. She hadn't got the knowledge or the skills that I have. But then she wants to go completely the opposite way. So instead of saying, okay, my child is sick, therefore I need to work out, are they really sick or are they just playing a game that they don't want to go to school? Because obviously that's a thing at the moment with COVID chopping and changing, that children don't know whether they're here or there, and do they like school anymore, or do they like being home? What about if mum needs me? There's so many stories going on in their mind that now it's, well, maybe I should keep her off the whole time, because when I was sick, my mum used to always send me to school. But we have to be more intuitive and discerning of the truth here, right? And make a call. And if it's the wrong call, then we just say, okay, next time I need to do this or that. The fact that we're going through this, am I a good mother, probably means you are, right? Because why would you even ask that question? If you weren't concerned about being a good mother, then you probably are not a good mother. But being concerned about it and asking yourself the question, am I being a good mother right now? Yeah, I think you can tell yourself you're being a good mother. So just looking at the storylines, looking at, am I going way over the top because of my parentage? Am I second guessing myself because I don't actually trust myself in other areas of my life? So the story that we tell ourselves is so important. If you want to be a good parent, then just think about what you would have liked as a child growing up. What you would have really liked, whether it was attention, whether it was more joy, whether it was bringing other children to the house, which we can't do right now, but we will be able to, right? So it's what would you have really loved your parent to be like? And sometimes, it's like less harsh. less harsh, those things that we think that we're doing for the right reason. So just look at your own parentage, how you would like to be, and start recreating the new story. If there's a backstory of, I didn't do a great job, then don't go back there, but go forwards from there. How can I be a better parent in this time in our lives? Okay, one more thing really, I think, and that is calm. Yeah, is to be more calm. I remember some time ago when I wanted to be heard and my children weren't listening. They just weren't listening to what I was saying. And so to be heard, I would become louder. I would become louder. So instead of being calmer, I would become louder. And then they would become louder because they would match my loudness. And also they wanted to be heard. So they wanted to be heard. They would become loud. I would become loud. And it would just end up as a big schmozzle, really, an argument that was never going to be fixed. It was never going to come to any fruition. The moment that I started to realize that the way we get our children to listen more is to speak slowly, to lower the tone, and to choose few words. The fewer the words, the more the impact, right? Because after about 3 seconds, people tend to turn off. And you may have turned off today. You may have started listening to this and think to yourself, oh, this is not really what I want. This is not what I need. And that's fair enough, right? But if you listen to the end, you often get the gems right at the end. Because after all the things that we've said, if we take some time to just sit and think and to go, okay, how did this impact someone? We seem to feel that there's a nugget to be left at the end. So what I'm saying to you today is that the calm, the thinking, the quiet time to think, sometimes before the words come out. So to take a pause, to go away from the situation, to think about what you really want those children to hear. What do you want them to hear from you right now? And how can you also listen? How can you listen? Because it's not always just the talking, is it? It's the listening. It's the getting into our own self. What would we want to hear as a child? Our own intuition here. And the more we get into our own intuition and what we would like to hear, the more we can word it in a better way. And we've talked before in my talks with you about words. I think last week was words and expression and body language, because they can also come into play when we're trying to get what we want. And what we want is our children to be safe and happy and healthy and all the things that we've ever wanted since we became pregnant, right? Is that we want our children to have all the things that we want to give them. All our knowledge, all our techniques, our ability to see things in a different way. So I'm going to leave you today with this wonderful little nugget of be calm. That's it. Be calm. The more calm you are, the more you'll get into your conscious, logical brain and allow them to do the same. Once it gets out of control, you're into emotional, uncontrollable, unconscious mind. Okay, I'll leave you with that right now, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.